Hello and welcome to The Catalyst, a podcast by Firstport taking you inside social investment. In each episode, we speak to people operating inside the social investment world, whether that's a founder, a social investor, or a partner in the ecosystem. We are going to demystify social investment and explore what social investment is, what it means to be investment ready, and what it means to fund a social enterprise. I'm Emily Macdonald and I head up the investment programme at Firstport. And today I'm joined by Angie Lee. Angie is an award-winning Scottish impact enterprise leader known for her work in empowering women, supporting purpose-led ventures and strengthening the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Angie is currently Director of Venture Support at the Challenges Group. And within the Challenges Group, Angie plays a key leadership role in the Ventures Lab, an impact venture builder supporting early stage and growing social enterprises. Before joining the Challenges Group, Angie spent 1.5 years at RBS as an enterprise manager supporting small and medium enterprises and early stage businesses. Prior to that, Angie worked in the third sector as a social entrepreneur, setting up and supporting social enterprises and purpose-led ventures. Outside of work, Angie is known for her passionate writing on businesses, well-being and purpose, and for championing entrepreneurs who want to make a difference in the world. And what a perfect person to have on the podcast, as you've worked with hundreds of impact-led ventures and you've worked in the sector for a while. You must literally have seen it all. So you've worked across enterprise development and finance and coaching, and now you're supporting impact-led ventures at Ventures Lab. But where did it all begin for you?
Oh, that's a juicy question.
It is.
It is. So, yeah, I think it all kind of started quite organically and naturally. If I look back in my life, I started off as a sports coach. And
I didn't know that.
Yes, I started off as a sports coach. So that kind of coaching has always been really kind of core to everything in my life. And then, I started a family quite young, and then that spun me out into that whole world of responsibility, and then looking into that space of juggling your family life with your career. And my career obviously went off track, like many women's do when they have kids. And as I was quite young, there's loads of energy, and I always had this passion from as long as I can remember around business, but I suppose as well I would often give things away. There was that thing about how do I blend this profit piece with the business piece as well. So the sports coaching kind of took me into that coaching phase, and then as I say, I had my children quite young, and I started a job in the voluntary sector. And it was an out of school club, and it was the first out of school club in Dundee at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was just a real opportunity, and I suppose, to run a business, because that's exactly what it was. Even though they called it at the time a voluntary organisation, it had to be run as a business. There wasn't grant funds that came in at that time. And you had to really balance out what the costs of the fees would be against all the costs of the staffing, and then you had all the other different aspects of running a business. Mm-hmm. And that was where I really kind of got that, I suppose, energy and drive. From there, I took that business to capacity. Yeah. We had 50 kids an evening. We had 13 staff that were all fully trained, and it was a bit like, okay, 5 years, what do I do now? So I then went into another role, which was around training and assessing in the kind of play and childcare environment. I did that for several years, and that introduced me to Dundee International Women's Centre. And that's really, I suppose, where the social enterprise world kind of opened up. And in that space, I had two hats. Both were part-time at that time. One of them was, we want to set you up with I had to set up a creche provision. So anybody who's listening, who's been in the childcare setting, will know that that's no easy task.
That is a challenge, yeah.
Heavily regulated. And not only that, the beneficiaries, the members of Dundee International Women's Centre, the aim was that they would be the ones that would be working in the creche. So it was that whole job progression piece. Mm-hmm. And then the other part was around setting up some kind of catering business, because again, we were looking at the skills of the beneficiaries and what would actually be a really positive and confident way for them to start looking at earning their own income. So childcare and catering seemed to be the choices that was most comfortable to them. And actually, when you look at it, there was a big gap in demand in Dundee at that time. So fast forward a few years, we ended up setting up a creche service. We ended up partnering up with the local college where we did a whole training programme. So it was that kind of circular economy model in a sense. There were about 25, 26 staff in total because we also set up a mobile creche. So we started delivering.
Big now, isn't it? Yeah,
it's getting big. So we started delivering creches around the community, which was also really good because the majority of the staff, well, pretty much all of the staff were women from the BME community. So it was a really good way of integration as well. And then the catering side took off. So you could imagine we worked with women from 80 different countries around the world, and each one of them had their own unique, authentic cooking style. Yeah. So it just seemed to me this is a no-brainer. Let's set up a business. So again, kind of looking at the skills you've got in your organisation and translating that into a business. So we ended up setting up Winspoon Catering. We did corporate catering, events, catering. We ended up making lots of different types of curries, and we called it Curry with a Conscience. We were at different events. We ended up doing Friday night curry night, where we delivered delivery curries to offices on a Friday night, and there's a story behind that too. The point being, both of these ventures ended up employing over 45 staff in total. And it really positioned Dundee, and in particular the Women's Centre at the time, as a real pioneer in social enterprise, because this is when it was all starting. What I learned from that was the sector has got the most amazing support, but the gaps that I felt I needed at the time were more support around how to actually run a business. The commercial side of it, the numbers, the marketing. There was just big gaps there. Right. And every time I did ask for support in that space, it was a costed exercise. Your accountant, so that's where I suppose I really struggled.
What kind of support was available at that time? Setting up the business.
So at that time, you're talking probably 2010, 2011. A lot of the government had really put out a big emphasis on social enterprise, as you'll know, and they had set up a lot of their intermediary supports. So Social Enterprise Scotland, Social Enterprise Academy, Sense Scot, they were all in their early stages. So in a way, it was the best time to really be testing the water with some of these. And because we also had a product-based business as well, it was more tangible. You could see it, you could understand it. So I just took advantage of what support I could. A lot of it was around leadership. If I'm honest, at that time, there was a lot of great, the Social Enterprise Academy did fantastic residentials where, you really got underneath the bonnet of the outcomes of what you were trying to do, the impact of what you were trying to do. And you also did look at the business planning side of it, because there needs to be that balance. But I felt as though overall and in general, there was just a lightness on that commercial aspect. There was a lot of support as well around the legal entities and
so the governance side of things.
The governance side of it as well. How you protect your mission, how you work in that kind of space with boards and bringing boards on board. There's a good tagline for you. A lot of support in that. The kind of the governance, compliance side and the leadership side. But as I say, a bit light in that commercial space.
So getting products to market.
And
kind of the hands-on support, which we're still missing today, actually. So the hands-on kind of financial cash flow building. All that kind of good stuff. HR.
Exactly. And you so I'm one of these people that I don't shy from asking for help. I'll do that. I'll be quite innovative and sometimes a wee bit forthright in that space. But I was hit with a few surprises where you'd be introduced maybe to an accountant, and then you'd speak to that accountant thinking that they were there to genuinely give you support and advice, and then get a £600 bill at the end of it, and you'd be like, wait a minute, what's happened here? So in a sense, you learn a lot about open and upfront conversation, and in a way, how not to do business as well. So for many social entrepreneurs that are going through this, if you could imagine, I'd set all this up and had a fantastic team. I was that was my job, to lead on all of this. Burnout eventually starts to happen.
Yeah, it does.
Because let's face it, you're in a situation where you're constantly every day learning. Okay, I'd never set up businesses. I just knew that this was the right thing to do. There's a I'm very led by values, so my moral compass was incredibly happy. Mm-hmm. But the technical skills and ability to actually run the business, I was learning every day. So when you're learning every day and running a business, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just natural and obvious. And then you're leaning on a lot of people as well. As I say, I was asking for support all the time, and their time is limited too. So when that point of burnout happens, it's soul destroying for not only the organisation, but the individual themselves, because the last thing they want to do is let anybody down.
I know that.
So when that day does eventually happen, there's a real resentment feeling, and it took a while. So when that happened to me, I took about 2 or 3 years away from the whole sector. Mm-hmm. It was maybe a bit longer than that, and I ended up going down a route. So I really love the food and drink sector. I ended up going down a route with the Social Enterprise Skills Academy. Mm-hmm. Fantastic opportunity for me just to get out there, see how the public sector works, see how the educational sector works as well, and then piece partnerships and strategy altogether. So I was a remote team. I ended up leading on that whole initiative, and we got it to a place of success. Really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. It was a really good breath of fresh air. And I do suggest to anybody that's listening, sometimes just having these little career shifts, mm-hmm. is a really positive thing to do.
Yeah, a bit different perspective.
It's a bit different, a bit of a different perspective. And that's when I met, in that kind of guise, I met Jim Fox from Coca-Cola. Right. And he then presented me with an opportunity that, it just, again, everything in business and life is about timing.
It is.
And
there's a lot of luck involved in the right time, right place.
100%. Yeah. And there was a programme called Coca-Cola 5x20. And I was like, Jim, what does 5x20 actually mean? And he said, so this is one of our leadership programmes, and it's a corporate social responsibility programme, and it's around empowering 5 million women by 2020. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, so this is me going back to, my passions, empowering women. And I was like, oh, tell me more. And to cut a long story short, this was more a kind of global south initiative. Totally came to Scotland by a chance conversation that Jim had with the First Minister when the business pledge at that point came out.
Right.
And Nicola Sturgeon at the time, Deputy First Minister, she was very keen on gender parity across board representation. So she brought out, I think it was called 50 by 50. Mm-hmm. And so just purely between the 5x20 and the 50 by this conversation.
All came together, yeah.
Anyway, it was decided that Dundee would be a really good place to pilot this programme, because we just invested over $1 billion into the waterfront development, and they were really looking at ways of enhancing that economic impact, and how can we start unlocking more talent in that kind of women-led space, founder-led space. So basically I was able to use the content of their programme, which I'll be honest, I couldn't actually use because it wasn't really designed for the kind of Western business models.
Right.
And that's where I got businesses involved to help me tell their story and support more women to remove the barriers for them to access business. Ended up, we run this for about 2 to 3 years, and the legacy of that programme set up Women's Business Station. So that was a community interest company that I set up. Yeah. And that run for about 4 years, but sadly we had to close our doors due to COVID and just the pivot and the drop in funding. So yeah, it's been an interesting time, and I've learned bucket loads that, I'm desperate to kind of share, and in that financial sense, there's so many lessons there that
such useful experience for you now to bring to the Challenges Group and to Ventures Lab, where we find ourselves working together. So how did the idea for the Ventures Lab programme take shape?
Interesting one. So the Ventures Lab is actually part of the Challenges Group.
Yeah.
As you may be aware of, and for those who don't, the Challenges Group is 26 years old or young. It's an international development organisation. It operates around 86 different countries. We have got 5 offices in Sub-Saharan Africa. And I think really the core essence of the Challenges Group has always been impact, and it's been looking at the world has got some of the most challenging problems, but actually businesses that are set up with purpose can solve these problems. But I suppose the caveat to that is the Challenges Group has been very strong on the fact that there needs to be outcome at the beginning, so you have to really understand what the purpose is, the difference that you're making and to whom, and then the business model has to have legs to grow. It has to then be commercially able to stand up. So in a sense, that model is more around the commercial aspect of it. And throughout the different countries that they've worked in, they've done that capacity building from early stage idea right the way through to, going for growth investment. So the Ventures Lab came to be around 6-7 years ago when the Challenges Group decided maybe Scotland, could do with a bit of what we've learned over the last 20 years at that point. And that's where they started positioning their model into the already rich social enterprise kind of fabric of Scotland. And it sits really quite nicely in the sense that it is bringing that commercial aspect to play the gap that I'd missed when I needed that support. And it's also bringing the impact piece into play so that you're not losing sight of the impact or the difference that you're trying to make. It's woven through and it's evidenced and protected as you grow. Government have really been keen on this, really backing this, and quite rightly so. When you look at the recent report from the UK government for the impact economy, it's a massive opportunity. And I think, what we have in Scotland is we've got a really strong social enterprise sector and really strong support. But there are also businesses out there, private businesses, private limited companies, that have got impact to their core. So if we were able to tap into both of these, just think of the difference that we can make in Scotland. Yeah. And then think about the different types of investment and capital that we could potentially unlock that suits this type of market, because it is different to that of a profit-making commercial venture.
And the current regulatory and the noise coming out of the government is really supportive around that, with all the community wealth building legislation coming in.
Yeah.
So it's a really good time to be sort of focusing on this.
It absolutely is, and it's great to see that, the more local authorities are embracing community wealth building. It really does anchor in that localisation and keeping the strength and the economic value into the regions and creating their own internal prosperity in that sense as well. And when you've got the opportunity to do that, this is where sparks of innovation and ideas and creativity and ownership and prowess, the whole lot comes into play. If the infrastructure, it's all about that kind of systems and infrastructures in place to organically support that to grow. Scotland is ahead of the game. They really are. We're really lucky to be in this climate, to have the ecosystem support. I think in total there's about 170 business support organisations in Scotland.
It's a huge network of support.
A population of just over 5 million. That's pretty good.
It is really impressive. Good. If we look back at the first cohort for Ventures Lab, there were some amazing ventures in there, like the Gender and Emergencies Group and the Climate Change Legal Initiative. What was it like working with those really early participants? And what did you learn about what support they need?
The one core theme is impact, and then turning that into commercialisation. So C2LI, so they were a university spin-out, so the first university spin-out for, I think it was Strathclyde University. So that in itself was an interesting process. A lot of universities have got phenomenal infrastructure to support, research and research innovation and translating that then into commercial business. But they've never really had the opportunity to look at it from a social kind of lens.
Yeah.
So
through social impact.
Yeah. So this was a really good opportunity to work with the universities to actually start early. So we call it, our impact innovation and translating research into commercialisation, kind of bringing those two bits together. So to get C2LI to the point of kind of being spun out in itself was a journey and a learning lesson. And then the next stage is, once they're spun out and they've got the investment, which they did have, how do you then help and support them to then follow through on their, as you know, every business plan is written in that moment in time.
Yes.
Things then change.
Do.
So I suppose the beautiful part of the Ventures Lab is that we have that pre-investment support through what we call our discovery and our build services and teams. And then when they got when they get the investment, they then go into our growth services, which is post-investment support. So basically this means that rather than going out and having to recruit a full team, they've got a fractional professional team that focuses and supports them on the execution of their business plan, the governance and compliance, the impact measurement piece, also marketing and comms, also helping them to look at different opportunities and open doors in the market. So that type of service has really helped both GIE and all the kind of ventures that have had that post-investment to continue. It's not always easy, and we'll never ever put our hands up and say, with the growth services, you're going to have 100% success rate, because things will just happen. But what it does do is it really does reduce that isolation, and like going back into my journey, you don't know what you don't know. So you're less likely to make the mistakes that could take you down into an abyss, a black hole, whatever that may look like, and hard to climb out. So the growth services, you've probably heard the term the valley of death. It's trying to make sure businesses come out of that, or don't even really enter into it in the first place.
No, it's true, because businesses start really strong and then you do go through that dip, don't they, where you've reached a bit of capacity, and then you're trying to make that leap to make a long-term sustainable business is really hard.
It's incredibly hard, and I think this kind of social space has got its other elements of complexity, because as a business does grow, how do you protect that mission drift? How do you protect the impact from being diluted? And that's not easy, because sometimes you're sitting there thinking, if I don't maybe do this, I'll not get the money in to do that. But if I do that, that supplier's maybe not the right values or morally for the business, but the other ones. So there's lots of different conversations and thinking that needs to be done to make sure that you are staying true to who you are in that space. So and this is why I quite like I love the fact that patient capital is an instrument that I think I would love to unlock more of in Scotland, to give more businesses the support and, I suppose, technical support as well, to allow them to grow safely. Not all lenders have that same ambition. But I know Firstport do.
It is tricky to get that balance right. It is. Yeah. I mean, that's what we've seen. We invest in social enterprises, but we've also invested in our team to be able to, not quite as comprehensive support as you do, but we've now got a business support person who's, as soon as we give a catalyst investment, you get support to help you with what happens next, because that's the difficult bit, really. I mean, it's difficult to get investment, but then afterwards you have to put that investment to work, and you have to deliver the business plan that you said you would. It's not easy.
It's not. And I think the mindset of the social enterprise is very focused on achieving the money, getting the money. It's not so much focused on what do you do with it once you've got the money. Yeah, exactly. And that to me is the seesaw bit. That's the seesaw bit. Once you've got that money, how do you balance that out to make sure you don't just drop and work from a kind of charity mindset, which is a top end budget. So you get the money coming in and then you allocate it out. Business, you have to work from nothing and then work your way up. It's a very different way of thinking. So how do we balance that with social enterprises, that it is great to have that vision and ambition to go out there and get that money, whether that be through the grants or whether that be through debt investment. what do you do when you get that money? And how do you make sure that money is actually being allocated and used for the business to grow?
Absolutely.
And not just working capital that's going to end up being reduced and reduced and reduced. It's tricky.
It's really tricky, and we're trying our hardest as support agencies to get that right and to sort of fill the gaps in the support that we're seeing. You've got such a comprehensive programme of support. Which of the elements of your support do your participants draw on the most? Is it like the centralised HR or the governance, or is it cash flow, or is it a bit of everything?
So it depends. It really does depend where they are on their journey. So often when we see ventures coming in, the criteria that we've got, so we call it our 4 I's. So the first area is impact the core of their business, and you can tell that straight away by the founder. You just absolutely can tell. If it's an add-on, you can also tell. So is impact at the core. The next bit is, are they looking for investment? But the next bit is, are they ready for investment? Yeah. So this is the kind of the part that we really need to understand when we're working with ventures. The next part is, our next I is that internationalisation. So the reason that we put that in there is we're looking for ambition. Right. We're looking for Scotland to be that kind of epicentre for impact in the future as well, unlocking that impact economy, but actually then taking what we're learning in Scotland out to other countries, exporting as well, potentially importing too, depending on what that looks like. And then the last I is that innovation piece. So usually when a founder comes to us, there's a pain that they're trying to solve. And usually when there's a pain they're trying to solve, they've thought about an innovative solution. Now, if it's working in universities, that could take years through their... But if it's somebody who's had lived experience, it can often be a core gap in the market, or something that they've experienced that's allowed them to actually improve, to have a better life, a better future, and they want to then share that. So we then try and make sure that innovation is kind of natural, and it's not replacing a gap in the market. So there's a bit of a gap analysis in that space. So that's kind of the elements that we look for within a business. So it doesn't obviously tick the boxes for all. When they do come into the build part of the programme, there's lots of different types of support that they may think they need, but actually when we do a kind of project scoping and we do the business diagnostics and the health check, we can then start to see the areas that there's maybe more gaps in. So for example, market research. So depending on the type of market research, that can really swing whether or not a product is a good fit to market or not. And so that can take the financial modelling as well. How many businesses have actually done that robust sensitivity testing, where we'll often see one set of business forecasts or cash flow forecasts, but there's no sensitivity analysis. So what happens if? So we will support them in that space. Another gap we often see is the skills needed to actually take that business plan to where it needs to go. They're often not within the founder. And that's why would it be, if you think about all the skills that everybody
can't do everything.
Everybody needs in a business, one person might need. So we try and help identify the key competencies and technical skills that are needed to take that business to the next stages. And that's a really kind of eye-opening moment, because in a way the founder goes, thank goodness, I hate finance, you know what? This is actually really quite good. So it just depends really where they are on their journey, what support they're actually going to need. But it's up to us to identify that with them, and that's why the Ventures Lab programme is a wee bit different, in the sense it's not so much an accelerator style programme. It's really 6 to 8 months of tailored business consultancy support with the right experts needed at the time to get that business plan ready for investment.
And what kind of investment are you seeing that is most suitable for these emerging kind of very impact focused ventures?
Very much depends on that type of entity, you know. Angel investment's often a good way to start. The difficulty with that is it's potentially diluting the business. I suppose this is my own personal opinion, is I would try and keep keep that kind of the business shareholding intact as long as you possibly can. So if there is a kind of debt finance route there and the business can obviously withstand the monthly payments, then I'd be more likely to choose that option if it was me personally. But again, it just very much depends on that business model and what it needs. And it could be that there's an equity investor that has exactly the right skills and the right advice and knowledge and willing to put in a good chunk to help you get to that point. I would say, what I would say in that situation is, get as much advice as you possibly can. Don't just jump with the idea of maybe getting 100k into your bank account because an investor that you've met on a networking event loves what you're doing, and you could potentially give them 20% of your business. Really do go out there and get as much support about these decisions as you possibly can, so you've got the information to make an informed choice.
Definitely, yeah, definitely with you on that. The more conversations you can have and the more people you meet, the better.
Exactly. And there's so many, I call it kind of cocktail types of funding. It doesn't need to be just one. You may be in that situation where you have 2 or 3 different types. It's about what's right for the business, and again, can't emphasize this enough, it's about the ability to be able to repay if that is the nature of the beast that you're going down. Easier said than done when we're living in very precarious times where externally you don't know what one day is going to bring to the next.
Yes, it
does mean businesses are reacting more than being proactive, which is not an ideal kind of place to be in either.
No,
But yeah, going back to the model that Catalyst runs, the revenue, patient capital, when you look at the benefits of that for an impact business, I'd love to see more of this being unlocked into the Scottish landscape. And I think between our partnerships, I think we're definitely looking to increase that and approach more conversations to unlock this space.
When you're working with ventures and you can see they're going to be more suitable for repayable investment rather than equity, is there anything that you prepare them to do differently? Or
it's around helping and empowering them to really understand the finances.
Yeah.
If they know the numbers, we've seen it. Working alongside a spreadsheet becomes a bit addictive at times, and we've seen the kind of you're laughing.
I love a spreadsheet, as you know. Yes.
But if you're a founder whose focus has never really been sitting in front of a screen and looking at these cells, you have to make that process really quite engaging for them, almost like a game. And then once they start to see how to use and operate it, they then start, this makes sense. And I've seen the light bulb moment many, many times. And if we can encourage more founders of the spreadsheet fear,
which there are a majority do, yes.
To then get them to start seeing and predicting in advance. Yeah. And also seeing that their cash flow, their budget or their forecast is within layers of their business. So by actually understanding where they sit here, they also are understanding where their marketing sits, where their governance sits, where all the other different operations within the business, and then how that feeds in to make the forecast the way it is. How by developing other activities within your marketing, you've got more chances then of reaching the audience, more chances of then doing a conversion into a sale, etc., etc. So when they start seeing that this is not just bound by thoughts out their head, but actually, a systematic safely assumed, because let's face it, all growth plans are based on assumptions, but let's validate it as much as we can and make it kind of mitigate the risk as much as we can. It then gives them the chance to see beyond so that they can have a bit more confidence. Yeah. And yourself, clarity breeds confidence, creates courage as well. So if they can be more clear on their numbers, they're able to then be more clear when they're out there having conversations as well.
Exactly. Yeah. When we start talking to founders about storytelling through your cash flow, you're right, you see that light bulb, they start to understand actually it's not just a spreadsheet with numbers. This is me telling the story of what I think is going to happen over the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Exactly.
Via numbers, yes, but it really does tell the story of your plans.
It is. And what I would say for those founders out there that are looking to kind of maybe get into this, take a note of everything that you're writing down, all your assumptions, because you will go back to it the next week and forget what that cell meant.
Exactly.
You laugh because you're like, oh yeah, I've done that. I've done this loads of times. Yeah. Have a notes column next to you that just write down all your rationale as to why you've done that. Because you might look at it the next month and go, oh, that made sense at that time because I was here in my journey, but it actually makes sense to do it now like this.
Yeah.
So just keep your notes. And when we're working with businesses to do their financial modelling, that's one of the key things that we'll do, because you can get some incredibly complicated spreadsheets that have got phenomenal data. But if the founder doesn't actually understand what that means and how to interpret that, it's just as well thrown at the bin.
Exactly.
It's got to be something that they understand, that they work with. It's really, really key in that space. So we while we work on a consultancy level, we don't do all the heavy lifting. The founders are encouraged to be involved in that process so that they are shaping it and understand it. When we then have our quarterly financial meetings with them, they're on page with us. Yeah, they get it,
and also they know what they actually say they're going to deliver. It's nothing worse than speaking to a founder and they've got this beautiful cash flow. Is it? Oh, so in year 2 you're going to do this, and this is blank look. You're like,
building up your reserves. It's all these types of things. You start thinking, and certainly from my experience as well, you become very protective of your team.
Yes.
At all costs, you want to make sure you're preserving their vacations, their employment. So you need to keep your eye on the numbers. You need to keep thinking beyond where you're actually sitting today. It's hard because, I've just done 5-year strategies. It's hard to jump back into 2026. Your head's away over there. So, but it's imperative for founders to actually do that exercise and do it every week, certainly every week. If you're doing it every month, it's a bit too little too late probably. It needs to be weekly.
But on the assumptions as well, you're right, it's so important to keep those assumptions and to share them. My goodness me, if you're giving your cash flow to an investor, please share the assumptions, because that is the story right there. That tells whoever's looking at the cash flow exactly where your mind was when you were writing this cash flow. And it's
for
really
sure.
important.
So I'll give you a wee internal trade secret. We've actually got a little framework in the Ventures Lab, and it's called the Prove It model.
Love it, right?
So whenever we're working with ventures, and whenever a venture is pitching to us their ambitions, their goals, their outcomes, whenever they're giving us any narrative or written down evidence of their business plan, we have a kind of little friend on our shoulder that sits there and goes, prove it. We don't say it direct because that's a bit direct, but we need to understand that what they're saying to us, there's evidence that backs it. And if there's no evidence that backs it and it's caveated with anecdotal, then okay, but we need to start looking at how we prove it. Because as you know, being on the investment panels and different committees, they need evidence. So that prove it kind of methodology that we've adopted helps us, and we just are able to then shape our questions around, okay, let me understand more about how you got to that assumption there. What did that look like? And then we can actually see.
The thought process is understanding where the numbers have come from. It's just so important.
Just sit there with that kind of prove it in your mind, prove it.
So the ecosystem, the social enterprise impact venture ecosystem, is growing really fast at the moment, and the legislation is very supportive. What do you think are the biggest opportunities for the ventures that you work with at the moment?
There are so many different types of support out there. Yeah, that's probably the hardest bit.
It's navigating that support, isn't it? Yeah.
Navigating and understanding where your journey fits into the sport that's out there. I've been ping-ponged around the ecosystem. You're absorbing so much information, but you end up spinning out and you're getting really confused. And what I've also seen is there's this thing of needing to have your idea endorsed. So as a founder, if you know your idea has got the legs to kind of go forward, don't keep seeking that kind of recognition. Think practically and pragmatically about actually, what are the next stages? The thing is, we've got AI now, so we've got all these amazing tools that you can start just asking fundamental business questions, use it. I think from the social enterprise environment that we're currently in, Scotland is really trying to pull together and really trying to streamline how that support can then be accessed across the country now. You could imagine Central Belt to Highlands, and Highlands very different demographic needs and setup. So they then need to, and this is where community wealth building also comes in. So it's that systems and governance piece that. How do we then get somebody that's at the very start of their idea journey? How do we then ensure that they are getting the right support at that time compared to somebody that's looking to get to that kind of growth scale space as well? How do we ensure that they're... so it's an interesting space. And what I would love to see more of is... we have got an incredible business gateway service, but it's very inconsistent support around the social enterprise knowledge. Because I've had the opportunity to work in different regions of Scotland, very different experiences. That's never going to be changed overnight. But if there is even like an impact lead within each of the organisations that then work with a central base, like Firstport, like Social Enterprise Scotland, like the Academy, so that there's a consistency in the level of support and connectivity, could that be a way? Because you've got to think about it from a founder's point of view. If you are wanting to do good in the world, usually that's what happens. You've discovered a pain, you want to find a way of helping others, and the way to do that is through the umbrella of social enterprise. One, you're probably not even going to know it's called a social enterprise.
No.
It's just, you just won't even think to call it that. You won't know. And two, where would you go for support? You would go to your business gateway. The chances are that would be your first port of call. Yeah. Unless you are fortunate enough to be in a network environment where I worked with women from disadvantaged backgrounds who weren't in that sphere. Some of them as well hadn't even heard of the business gateway. Where do they go for that kind of support? So that's if you're really wanting to try and reach and encourage that kind of founder level engagement. How do we make the offering a bit more consistent to what's sort of the fabric of what's already there? Yeah, because just getting the word out there about what's available. You're right, it's the consistency of support throughout Scotland, I think we're working on. And that's one of our aims for this year, coming to get the support that we have out just wider known within Scotland. So get out to the regions, make sure that we're working with all the third sector interfaces up in the Highlands and in different regions, just to make sure we've got the message out. And to remind them as well that, this is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. And if you're going to fail fast and fail cheap. Don't... It's not for everyone. The social enterprise journey is not for everyone. And I think good advice will help people to venture build with others more. Why set up something in isolation when there's possibly a venture around in the next community or the next town, or a founder that's got similar, joining up a bit more, I think is an area of support that I really would love to have seen. I would have loved that back in the day when I was setting up my ventures, even if it's piggybacking on ideas and support, but actually that peer or the venture building piece. So we're doing it just now within Ventures Lab. We've got quite a few ventures now that are doing that venture building together because they're so aligned. And I think that's the beautiful thing about impact businesses. When you're so aligned on the outcomes, the mechanism to get there is what's important. It's not the ego to, this is my business and I have to set it up this way. It's more like, okay, if we join forces together, we're going to get to that outcome faster and greater, So more support in that joint venture building space. And that peer network support space, I think, would be really beneficial in the social enterprise landscape. Totally agree. When we run our Launch Me investment readiness programs, consistently the feedback, the thing that people find most useful is working in a group, having peers that are at the same kind of point as they are in their social enterprise journey. And even if it's not in the same sector, but it's just the sharing of ideas, the sharing of things that have gone wrong, the sharing of contacts. So this person was really helpful. Amazing. Avoid that one. It's just so powerful to get people together. For sure. That are looking for the same kind of, heading in the same direction. I think as well, there's something about being able to, attract ventures that are on the same level as you, but then also those that are maybe 2 or 3 years ahead, because you're almost then getting that mentoring support as well in that space too. And, at the Ventures Lab, we're developing that now as we're growing as well, and we're seeing a real richness there that's starting to transform. But let's face it, if we can if we can just remove egos in a sense and help others to kind of see the outcomes as being the important piece, you know, that difference that you're trying to make, it just makes sense of all the other noises that's happening in your or your worries that are happening in your world, in your head, to actually make the decision to do what's going to be beneficial for your beneficiaries.
Absolutely, yes. So you've championed women's entrepreneurship for a long time.
Yes.
What barriers are you still seeing for women who are starting out in business or operating business? Or we could widen it out to underrepresented founders. I mean, there's a whole community of people who find it harder to get support. Or
The biggest one is confidence, really.
Confidence,
It's confidence in having the starting off of a conversation, which is what I found. You know, there's many, many, many women out there that have got a huge amount of entrepreneurial skills and passion and ideas, and they're already being entrepreneurial in their own home, but they would never think to take that into the next step of running a wee business or going for support. And I think when I worked at the Women's Centre and Women's Business Station, we used to just bring women together and just have really good, frank, honest discussions, and then that was
women are good at that.
They're very good at that, and you know, whether it was we just did lots of different things, and then that would be the starting off the engagement points. I suppose some of the other barriers are around. There's a lot of invisible barriers that we don't see, that we're just so conditioned into accepting. That's probably the hardest. When I set up a Women's Business Station, one of the key kind of strategic positioning pieces that I was doing was trying to create more awareness around the barriers. And we knew at that point that we were never going to know what all the barriers were until we started this. Because it's only until you start actually doing, you start unlocking.
You start to realise exactly what people
So we started a programme called Empowerment Partners, and we then brought different businesses that in the community and nationally. So we had like the Royal Bank of Scotland, we had MTC Media, we had DC Thompson's, we had Carnoustie Golf Links, lots of different big commercial and corporate businesses. And the whole idea for this exchange was that we would then connect every 6 months. There was lots of other different things they did, but kind of the big piece was, and we were actually able to share with them some of the barriers that the women that we were working with were facing in their sector or their industry. And for example, one of our legal partners were interested in why more women aren't approaching their services. And when you actually got to the earthiness of it all, it was purely confidence and fear. It was the fear that, what if they charge me? What if I don't know the right questions? What if the clock's ticking every minute and I don't know, what if? It was just this fear. And then there was also this sitting in a solicitor's office or a legal office, sitting behind a desk and almost feel like you're being interviewed. So how did we get around that? Well, we set up little podcasts. We arranged for them to meet in cafes. They would dress in civvy clothes, the lawyers, and it was just simple things. It didn't need to be earth-shattering, hard, complicated. It was actually just really simple, approachable. This is a person.
Exactly. Just putting a face.
Just putting a face. Same with like our media company that we worked with. One of the biggest barriers that when you're starting off a business, you can't afford £5,000, £6,000, £7,000, and often your first iteration of your website just gets tossed after the first year anyway because it's not right. You know yourself. So how can you invest all that if you've got nothing to begin with? So our media partner then did a payment plan. So the first 3 months they didn't pay for anything, and then once they started, a bit like your revenue model, they would then start. So we were starting to remove the barriers through the engagement process of us being the honest broker, the facilitator in the middle, and saying to the businesses, here's where we're seeing barriers to access. What can we then do about it? And that was incredibly powerful. And it's just a shame that, we weren't able to continue that work, but I'm bringing these skills into the Ventures Lab as well. So
exactly.
So it's very much, the barriers are there. One of the other barriers as well, and as we all know, is that kind of confidence to then go out there and ask for that investment that you need.
Yeah.
Women will be far more reserved, far more cautious. They'll bootstrap as far and fast as they can.
Yeah.
Taking that next step. So I would definitely recommend more support in that space to help the mindset of women to feel more confident and assured that this is a good decision, if it is a good decision, for their business, rather than it being out of fear that I might fail, you know.
Yeah. We find the same in our programmes. We get, say, 50-50 women and men being on the programme, but we have to support the women more, I think, to have the confidence to then ask for help or to go for investment or just to be ready. And to make that leap almost.
Absolutely, and it's their networks as well. You know, they maybe don't play golf enough. so it's then how are their networks going to enhance their journey? Yeah. So it's and
I think we can help with that as organisations.
Absolutely, we sure can. But again, it's a scary space to walk into a busy networking room with suits, and you're standing there for the first time going, who's going to want to speak to me? You know, so there's so many things that will go on in the mindset of many female founders that I think we can all do a bit more to support. And don't get me wrong, I mean some of the best advocates in my experience have been men championing women, and I love that. It's just you know, it's and why would they not? You know, I think the thing is, we don't realise that these invisible biases are here. It's only until we start to see it through the lens. And it's only when you start to see it, that's when you can start to make a change and make a difference.
Exactly. Okay, and lastly, let's be brutal. Where do you think that we, in the social investment sector, where can we improve? Where's there more work to do?
I think there is in this space. I think a big area for improvement is in how you're talking about the sector. I think there has to be clearer marketing, messaging, and narrative, and also, can we please get rid of this not-for-profit term? It's quite damaging for the sustainability of the sector, and it's also quite damaging for the mindset of the sector and our perception out with the sector. So what new narrative I would like to see is that we are really supporting impact businesses to be sustainable with their business model as much as can be. Yeah. We all know that there are a lot of models out there that will always require and should require some element of support from charities, foundations, government, whatever that may be, because they're meeting a systematic failure within a region. But there are also those enterprises that could be much more commercial with what they have, but they just don't know, and they've not got the skills or the know-how to do so. Yeah. So more commercially focused, and let's use that word positively. Commercial is seen as a bit of a dirty word in this sector. It's not.
But really, it's sustainable.
It's sustainable. Yeah. And profit is good. The more profit you make, the more impact you have, which means the more good you can do. So if we can start to really build and change that narrative and that mindset and that positivity, you'll start to, the way I see it is, you'll start to see more cohesion, not only within the sector, but out with the sector. So it doesn't feel like them and us. I've worked in all. I've worked in private, public, corporate, commercial, but financial. Third, I see how they've all worked differently, and I'll be honest, when you're out with the third sector, you don't think about them very often. They don't come into your... No. And if they do, it's maybe not at the level I feel that they should be playing at. So for me, it's that clarity of marketing, clarity of messaging, really, really start to focus more in on that commercial support that they need, unlock more investment to help them to grow, and just watch that economy, that impact economy piece really start to thrive.
There's so much economic and social impact that social enterprises offer. What's the one piece of advice you would give a founder of an ambitious impact-led venture who needs investment? They come to you. What's the first piece of advice you would give them?
I need to see where they're going in the future.
Yeah.
So for me, the first thing I will always ask them is, 10 years from now, where are you? What difference have you made? Yeah. And then what happens is, because you're then getting them to think in the future, you're getting them to emotionally connect to those outcomes. And it's that emotional connection that then translates into action and encouragement and messaging going forward. So if they can see where they can be in the future, that's then the bit that we can then reverse engineer and help them. It's like when you think about going on your own journey. So if you could jump in your car and head to London, but there's how many ways can you get to London? Billions, like literally. There's so many different, and it could take you forever and a day. You know,
right. You can go direct, or you can take a more scenic route. Exactly.
So we're kind of starting to think about what's our sat nav code. You know, what is the code that we're looking for here? If you don't have a good vision of where you're going, then you might as well just take any route. That to me has been the when you're met with a founder and you can feel it within them, it's because they know the direction of travel. And it's that emotional connection and that understanding of how they're going to get, or why they're going to get there, what it means for them, that will get them there. Mm-hmm. But if it's woolly, that's when you're going to have a lot more work to do. And is it really kind of well thought out and you'll know yourself when you've met. You just meet them. You just know they're going to get there by hook or crook. It's that kind of. And I suppose another thing is, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey as well. And we can lose sight of that and enjoy it. You're going to have highs and lows and highs and lows, and just remember that when you're on the lows, that's part of your growth, not to get caught up and stuck in it, but actually go, right, I'm here for
every
a reason.
Day's a learning day.
Every day's a learning day. there's no growth in comfort, so they say. When you're in that comfort space, hopefully you've done all the hard work and you can be sitting back and getting the business to work for you in a way. But I couldn't. I've worked in, as I've mentioned, I've got kind of colourful background, but every single role has had to have strong outcomes and values aligned to it, and fairness is one of my core values. So if you know your values as an individual, then that will align naturally to your vocation. Yeah. If you're going to set up a business, then set it up and do good, Set it up and do good for the world, good for people.
So there we have it. Social investment has the potential to support our vibrant and innovative impact ventures ecosystem, and to support them to make a real social and economic impact within Scotland and globally. I just want to say a huge thank you to Angie for being here today and for sharing all your experiences and your insights with us. Find out more at thechallengesgroup.com and theventureslab.com, and you can also find the Challenges Group and the Ventures Lab on LinkedIn. If you'd like more information on Firstport's investment readiness support, or about our investment products, including the Catalyst Fund, please visit firstport.org.uk. You've been listening to The Catalyst with Emily Macdonald. Join us next time as we continue to demystify social investment.